I'm a glutton for punishment. I cannot quit Clemson basketball, and Clemson basketball's sucking us right back in. Clemson went on the road to Chapel Hill, picked up their second ever win in Chapel Hill. They're now 2-60 all time in Chapel Hill, and it is a huge win. Season seemed like it was spiraling out of control. Really felt like they didn't have the moxie, the heart, and the toughness to battle back from really bad luck losses. Really kind of a bad loss at home where they blew it at the end. Lost to Duke, frankly, on a bad call, but really several bad calls. Seemed like they might kind of crumble under that. Instead, they go on the road to a team that UNC has beat Clemson 124 times all time. No one's beat Clemson more than UNC. Obviously, in Chapel Hill, hadn't won up until I guess it was early 2019, 2018-19 season, or 1920 season. So, obviously Chapel Hill and the Dean Dome has been a terrible place for Clemson, but they go there, they pick up their second ever win there. They're now 23-124 against North Carolina. So, not super common they win against North Carolina, let alone in Chapel Hill. Clemson is now improved to 5-6 in the ACC, which isn't great, but given what they have ahead, which I'll talk about in a second, not terrible. Certainly a lot better than what it could have been. It could have been pretty bad. So they're now 4-4 in quad one games, and the important flip side of that coin is they're also 5-0 in quad four games. Last year they won a couple big games, but they lost some terrible, ugly losses. They need to make sure they continue to avoid that. But not only did they play a tougher schedule, but they took care of business against bad teams. They never trailed in this game. They ended up winning 80-76, and really it was more than that. RJ Davis hit a three as time expired that was irrelevant. So really they were up 7 with 2 seconds to go. PJ Hall was awesome, bounced back, really struggled, played pretty poorly against UVA, was chucking threes, and only shot 25% in the game. But against North Carolina, he bounced back, shot 40%, led all scores with 25 points. Really, really good performance from him. Joe Girard, deadly from three, 5 for 10 from three, including at least one that I caught that was just, from miles away. Defense isn't even trying to guard me so far out, and he still makes it. Clemson needs those guys to be scorers. When they struggle, Chase Hunter hasn't been, he's taken a step back, just to be frank, from where he was last year. I don't know if he's not healthy or what, but he's regressed a lot as a three-point shooter. He brings a lot in terms of athleticism, defense, and ability to drive, but he hasn't progressed as much as we thought he might. We thought he might be one of the best point guards in the conference, and that hasn't really materialized. And so it's just even more important for Joe Girard and PJ Hall to have big games. When they do, this team is really, really good. And we saw that against UNC. And then Ian Shefflin, I won't say he's been struggling, but this was back to sort of that, elite post presence kind of guy that we had seen earlier in the year. He went 14 points, 11 rebounds. Last 4 games, he hadn't had a double-double. He gets back to that. So you look at Clemson, you look at their resume, they have a win at number 7, Alabama, number 7 per KenPom rankings. They have a win at number 8, North Carolina, again, per KenPom. A neutral site win over number 30, TCU, a home win over number 44, South Carolina, and a win at number 66, Pitt. And then I think the thing you got to look at here as the schedule opens up now. So they're only 5-6, 15-7 overall. 15-7 is obviously good. 5-6, not as good. But their upcoming games are at Syracuse, huge letdown spot this weekend. Need to take care of business. But if they do, after that, they host Miami, who beat them earlier, but Miami will never play a game as good as they did against Clemson in Coral Gables, in Coral Gables when they went down there. So you come back and win that one. KenPom gives them a 75% chance to win, which, take with a grain of salt as this Clemson team has been so up and down this year. But NC State, KenPom gives them a 76% chance. They go on the road again to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech obviously beat them in double OT, but really that's a team Clemson should beat. KenPom again, 72% chance to win that one. They come home to Florida State, 77%. They host Pittsburgh, who they already beat, 73%. They go to a bad Notre Dame team, 76%. They host Syracuse, so they play them twice. Up next is on the road, but end of the year at home, 79%. And then they do have a really tough game to end the year at Wake Forest, only 35%. They won't win, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row before they go to Wake, but they could win 6 of 8, right? They could go on a run here. So they could get to like 11-8 or something like that, heading into that Wake Forest game and finish 11-9. And if they do that, they're better than an 8 seed. They're in a 7-6, depending on how the rest of the field, or how their wins look and how the rest of the field performs. But they should be very solidly in, have a favorable matchup. And what I said at the beginning of the year was Clemson needs to make the tournament. This is year 14 of Brad Brownell, and I like him a lot personally. I haven't, talked to him for more than 30 seconds, but he seems like a good guy who runs a clean program. He's easy to cheer for. But come on, this is year 14. Give me a tournament win. They've advanced past the round of 64 one time. You got to do it. And I just believe in this team. Maybe I'm a sucker. I've been suckered so many times by Clemson basketball, but man, for them to come back after that home loss to Virginia and go win at North Carolina, that's really impressive. Now, we'll see. Maybe they go on the road, have a big letdown against Syracuse team they have no business losing to, but I don't know what more. You got to enjoy the wins. This is Clemson basketball. You don't beat North Carolina much. You certainly don't win there much. Take a minute. Stop worrying about the coach you don't like and just enjoy the win. I've had a very friendly, cordial feud with SC Coast on X, and he's promised to buy me lunch. I guess on Grubhub I'll get a gift card or something if Clemson gets 20 wins. And I look at that, they don't get 20 wins at this point. You're at 15. The schedule's opening up. I think they'll get 21 wins, 21-10, 11-9. That's what KenPom projects. I think that's about right. You can't quit this team. They didn't quit. They went to North Carolina and won. Don't quit them. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimism. Buy that Clemson stock now in basketball too. Before I get out of here, just I'll need to do a separate video on this for football, but a couple quick notes here, just as a quick little ending here. Looks like they're advancing some NIL legislation in the state house in the state of South Carolina, which is great. They're basically completely undercutting the NCAA, kind of making NCAA rules illegal per state law. The NCAA is going to collapse. It's going to be fascinating to see, actual American law go against this, nonprofit organization that's holding players back and kind of backwards in a lot of the things it does. So I think we're moving towards an employee model, which I and a lot of people were against before, but seeing how upside down the NIL space has gotten and how it's become pay for play, but all under the table, how NIL was supposed to make it all above board. It's seemingly made it even more under the table, and that, these are marketing deals, but they're really just pure pay for play. So I think at this point, it would be a lot more honest if just let schools directly pay them. Seems like we're moving in that direction, which also seems like the death of the ACC. If conferences or schools are paying players, you can't possibly make a third of what a school in the Big Ten makes or the SEC makes. So we're going to see that accelerate, I think, over the next couple of years. And then lastly, Matt Luke on the recruiting trail. Guy is outstanding. That's why you bring in an elite offensive line coach with a proven track record. They brought in Braden Jacobs, stud offensive line. I'll talk about him and some of the other recruits they've gotten, but I think tons of reason to be optimistic about the future of Clemson football, despite some of these broader sort of seismic changes in the sports. Clemson is finding a way to bring in elite talent, despite not necessarily leading with NIL, having a family approach. But now that they have elite coaching, they could really be serious about talking about that development. And that 2025 class looks, and these are always very 50-50. If you can get 60% of your prospects to hit, that's great. But it looks like a very, very elite class. So really encouraging to see Clemson get back to that, despite this money rules everything environment. So a lot of optimism tonight for Clemson sports. As always, go Tigers. And I didn't mention it before, but if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Really helps it grow. And please like this video. Don't forget to like the video. Thanks, and go Tigers.